Hi Sparkles, it's your favorite freckled friend Didi, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for all the likes and the support that I've been having so far on this channel. If you're interested in true crime, this is the channel for you. Hit that subscribe button. For today's video, we are going to talk about Richard Ramirez. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but you guys will definitely know of him now since you're watching this video. Richard Ramirez was born February 29, 1960s in Texas. He was one out of 5 children of Mercedes and Julian Ramirez. Both of his parents were Mexican immigrants, so they grew up in a working family. His father worked the law to try to provide for his family. It did say that his father was physically abusive towards him and the mother, so Richard did grow up a little distant from his family. Richard reportedly sustained multiple head injury at a very young age. One of them was at the age of 2, where a piece of furniture fell on the top of his head, and again at the age of 5 he was struck unconscious by a swing, and due to that injury he began experiencing epileptic fits. Richard was highly influenced by his oldest cousin Miguel. Recently returned home from fighting in the veterinary war, so it was said that Miguel was effed up in the head. Back in the days, there was no medical attention or no medical help for for veterinarians, so Miguel had to just live with it basically. Miguel introduced marijuana to Richard at the age of 10, and they started smoking heavily. While Miguel tells stories about what happened during the war, he also showed vivid and graphic images of him sexually assaulting females during the war, and Richard was amazed by what he was seeing. Obviously, he see his cousin as an idol, so he was like, his little eyes was just lighting up. At the age of 13, while Richard was at Miguel's house, it said that Miguel and his wife had a heated argument, led to Miguel shooting up his wife in the middle of the head while Richard was just sitting in the couch. But Miguel did not plead guilty due to his mental statuses, but he was sent to like a mental health institution, I believe. Dropping out of school in the ninth grade, Richard was arrested for the first time in 1977 for the possession of marijuana. He soon moved to California, where he was severely addicted to cocaine, and he also gained an interest in Satanism. He was arrested twice in Los Angeles for auto theft in 1981 and in 1984. Richard's first known murder was on June 28, 1984. His victim was a 79-year-old woman who was brutally sexually assaulted, stabbed, and killed while she was sleeping. He proceeded to stealing all her valuables in her house. Richard then began his spree of brutal murders, rapes, and robberies, and leaving dozens of victims in its wake. Richard struck nearly 9 months later on March 17, 1985, where he followed Maria Hernandez to her house. But did notice that she was being followed, so she attempted to rapidly open the door of her house. But by the time she was able to do that, Richard fired a gun at her. As one would do, she got scared and raised up the hand that was holding the key in front of her face, which surprisingly protected her from the bullet. But she was smart enough to pretend that she was actually hurt and lay down on the floor. Maria did have a roommate who overheard of everything that was going on outside, so she attempted to hide until the area was clear enough for her to make a run for it. She hid behind the counter, and out of curiosity she peeped her head over to see what was going on, but that's when Richard noticed her and shot her, and unfortunately did not make it. Richard was not satisfied at all. It was reported that same evening Richard also shot and killed another victim. Literally the same day, a few hours later, killed another victim. The police was not putting this together. They believed that there were multiple suspects at that time. Just 10 days later, on March 27, Richard successfully broke into an elderly couple's house while they were sleeping. Richard shot the husband that was laying right there near his wife, and obviously the wife was waking up by the gunshot. That's when she noticed that she was in danger. Richard then brutally assaulted the wife and stabbed her multiple times to death. After that, Richard robbed the house, taking all the valuables. Not only that, Richard also gutted out her eyes, putting it in a jewelry box and taking it with him for several years, I guess. Richard went on killing multiple people in the same manners. That's when the police started to put the puzzle together. And one thing that also led to that conclusion, Richard would, after he would do what he's doing, he would also mark or carve a pentagram around the victim. One of his victims, he marked a pentagram on her thighs. One of the victims, he marked a pentagram on the walls of the bedroom. With the extra knowledge, the police were definitely sure they had a serial killer on the loose, and they were extremely terrified because They had no clue who it was. Richard was very good at cleaning up after himself, but until he started to leave like those pentagram shape, he started to get a little bit sloppy. Over the next few months, his murder rate escalated, claiming another dozen of victims of burglaries, assault, and brutal violence completed with Satanism rituals. But the police were getting somewhere. They started putting some pieces together. But one thing that they did, a lot of people did not agree with, is that they went on live television and announced what was going on to the media. They should lock the doors, keeping safe. There's someone going around that's going, all that stuff that was happening. They also mentioned that they had fingerprints of him, and so they know who it was. They just didn't know where to find him. And obviously, it's live on live television. Guess who was listening? Richard was listening, and he was like, oh, so he had to flee the area so he would not be arrested, because the media now know who he is, what he looks like, and all the details about him. He left the LA area later that year. He journeyed north to San Francisco, where he took out 2 more victims on August 17. Richard's action on his final night of terror was on August 24, 1985, which soon led to his capture. Richard attempted to again break into another person's house. There was a little boy at the time that overheard some footsteps outside of his house. Obviously, so he warned his father about the footsteps he was hearing outside. The family turned on all the lights, made a lot of noise just to kind of scare Richard away. So Richard got extremely scared. He made a run for it, but not until one of the family members was able to mark down the plate number of the car that he was driving. For some reason, Richard could not be stopped. Richard once again managed to rape another woman at the house, but he did not kill the woman. Then the woman later went to the police to describe every detail of who Richard was, and also forced her to swear to the love of Satan and all that stuff. Richard was finally captured on August 31st after he was badly beaten by an East LA resident while attempting to carjack a car in broad daylight. The jury selection process finally moved on July 2nd, 1988. So he was captured in 1985, but I don't know what was happening between 1985 and 1988. So everything is finally moving forward in 1988. In that time, the media knew about Richard. His picture was released to the whole media. Once again, the ladies were sexualizing him because he was way too handsome to be killing people. He basically had his own little cult while his whole trial was happening. Not only the media was obsessed with Richard, but one of the jury was also mesmerized by Richard's good looks. And one of the jury was found murdered on August 14, 1989. They believe that Richard had some type of connection with that murder. So they believe that Richard must have sent someone to kill that specific jury. It was false. Richard had nothing to do with that murder. Finally, on September 29, 1989, the jury finally announced Richard guilty of 43 charges, including 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempt murder, 11 sexual charges, and 14 battery charges. 2 weeks later, when the jury recommended the death sentence, the response was, quote, "Hey, big deal. Death always come with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland." End quote. Richard was then sentenced to death in the gas chamber on November 7, 1989. He was incarcerated. He had some fans. He had girls sending him fan mails, girls sending him love letters, him pictures, all that good stuff. Richard was loved by little cult. Even while he was incarcerated, Richard married one of his supporters, 31 years old Dory Leon, in 1996. Richard saw a great opportunity. He was trying to use her as like an open door, as a way to like escape and a way to like actually be aware of what's going on in the outside world. After nearly 24 years on the death row, Richard died on June 7, 2003 due to cancer at the age of 53. And for all the youngsters out there, y'all need to get better idols. And you guys deserve a lot more. Never settle down for that. Just like our guy Ted Bundy, Richard's appearance also brought him some fame. which I found weird because like he's a criminal. These people are literally terrible people. Why are we sexualizing or idolizing any of what they're doing, you know? But that's the end of today's story. As always, you guys, don't forget to stay humble, stay fierce, and stay safe. It's a scary world out there, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.